Hello, you beautiful creatures.
Welcome to Frass Happens, a podcast where we teach you shit about insects. I'm your host, Casey.
And I'm your host, Katie. And we're so excited that you're listening to the first episode of our podcast.
Today we're kicking things off with a little introductory interview episode so you can get to know us a little better. However, if that's not your cup of tea and you're just here for the critter content, feel free to skip this episode. Our feelings will not be hurt. And we do promise that future episodes will be a deep dive into the incredible world of insects and other invertebrates.
That being said, we also think that it's really important, especially in a world filled with misinformation and greenwashing, that you know who we are and why you can trust us to give you good information on these deeply misunderstood animals.
Or why not to trust us? It's up to you.
But before we jump into the interview questions, we're going to give a tiny bit of background about ourselves. Casey, do you want to go first?
I'd love to. I have a background in wildlife and conservation biology, and while I was finishing up my undergrad, I started to get into entomology a bit. I gained a bit of research experience working with managed honeybees and native bumblebees, and then I went on to complete my master's at the University of Rhode Island in 2022. Since then, I have been working as a research associate studying wild bees and pollinator plants. I'm also the project coordinator for the Rhode Island Plant Insect Community Network, which is a program that's aimed to connect folks who work on native insects, native plants with one another within the state. So, in summary, I've been working with insects, mainly bees, for about 7 years now. And what about you, Katie? What's your connection to the insect world?
So, I've been working in the field of conservation research for about 13 years now, mostly focused on native insect pollinators. In my early 20s, I traveled around the United States, working on various research projects and insect surveys, and then in 2017, I moved to Ireland to work on my PhD at University College Dublin. Officially, my PhD is in agriculture and food science, but my research was focused on the contributions and conservation of insect pollinators. Then in 2021, I moved to Rhode Island to take an entomologist position with the Department of Environmental Management, which is how I met Casey. Casey, do you want to tell them how we met?
Ooh, yes, most definitely. Katie came to visit our lab as part of a professional collaboration. But after we met, we also started following each other on Instagram. And I started noticing that every time I went to go like a post or a reel, Katie had already liked it. So finally, after months and months of this happening, I just slid on into her DMs and I was like, hey, it seems like we like all of the same things. I think we should be friends. Do you want to hang out and get a beer sometime?
And we did! We went for a beer, I spilled my drink all over myself, we laughed, and the rest is history.
Then the second time that we hung out, I invited Katie to a boat-burning keg party on a beach. Mm-hmm. And that just really solidified the friendship, and we've been hanging out, doing weird things, and looking at bugs together ever since.
But then, a couple years ago, my husband and I decided to move back to my home state of Maine, where I'm currently a stay-at-home mom and a freelance interpretive naturalist. So, sadly, Casey and I have been long-distance best friends for a while now, which is actually a big reason why we decided to start this podcast.
Yeah, well, we're both really passionate about insects and talking about them with people. We also saw this podcast as an opportunity to spend a little bit more time together. And boy, have we. So we just really hope that you enjoy our chats and our ramblings because as you'll come to find out, we love to yap.
Speaking of yapping, should we hop into the interview questions?
Yes. Okay. We'll get right into it then. Question 1. What initially inspired you to become an entomologist? And Katie, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and take this first one.
Yes, go for it. I want to hear.
So when I was in my undergrad, I was trying to fill time slots and get certain credits for different things. I was able to fit a humans, insects, and disease course into my Tuesday-Thursday schedule. And I was super stoked for that because I was traveling about an hour of a commute to get to the school. And I just kind of took it being like, yeah, okay, I'll learn about this, sure. I don't really know anything about bugs or insects, whatever. And I absolutely fell in love with it. So it was kind of like a crash course of intro to entomology, but also brought people into the picture. And we talked about all different, vectors of diseases and things of that nature in the course. And the professor was just absolutely incredible. I continued on the next semester to take his Intro to Entomology course at the same time as taking a Biology of Bees and Pollination Ecology course, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. It was so incredible, and it was honestly like my entire universe and world had opened up. All of these things that I used to just walk by or stand next to, I no longer did that. I started noticing things. I started seeing all these little secrets that were around me the whole time I've been alive, that I had never just noticed before. And so it really opened up this entire new world for me, and I still to this day can't get enough of it. So that is what inspired me to start to study entomology and to research different entomology topics.
Oh, that's amazing. I love how you said like the secrets around you, because I feel like that relates so strongly to how I really got into insects, and other invertebrates as well. I often refer to them as like the miniature worlds that surround us, but so often go unnoticed. So I love those parallels there.
I love that.
Yeah. For me, it really started in childhood. I feel like insects were just something exactly that, where this whole world that I felt almost like belonged just to me. It was like I was the only one who could see it. And I just was really passionate about insects as a child. And the only fight I ever got into in school was in middle school, because there was a terrible boy, Colin, if you're listening, and he was squishing caterpillars like methodically. And so I attacked him and I tried to tear out his eyes. And
Katie, you tried to take out his eyes?
I did.
What the
And
fuck?
that's the only fight I've ever been in my whole life. My only physical fight. So I've been very passionate about this from a very young age. And then when I started getting older, the neighborhood that I was growing up in was changing really rapidly. I grew up on the coast of Maine, and I was watching the woods and mudflats around me disappear and be turned into parking lots and mansions. And it really just like lit this fire in me. So conservation and insects have always been really closely linked, which made insect pollinators a really natural choice for me, since as I was coming through college, that's when there was a lot of news about, oh, the pollinators are disappearing. So that's kind of how I ended up in the professional field of entomology.
So I often wonder with our friendship if we would have been friends when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And one, I think we're both weird enough that we would have. But now that I've heard this story, which I have never heard before, I don't know if we would, because I used to be fascinated by microwaving worms and ants because they pop and explode.
Oh my God.
Don't do that. That's torture.
I will fully admit I've had my like fair share of, I don't know, putting insects in jars and forgetting about them when I was a kid. But I don't know. I like to think we still would have been friends. All right, shall we move on to question number 2?
Question 2, part 1 is for me, part 2 is for Katie. So, part 1. For those less familiar with insect terminology, can you explain how you came up with our podcast title? Yes, I can. I was trying to create a more insect-themed Instagram, because there's a beautiful entomology community on Instagram. And I started to kind of delve into that a little bit on my own personal Instagram at the time. Over time, that has now just become my insect one. But I was trying to come up with a name to call it, and I was just, writing down all of these terms that have to do with insects, entomology, bugs, critters, anything. And yeah, so Frass Happens came about because shit happens, and frass is insect excrement. So shit happens. That's it.
It's also a fun fact in the title where anyone who isn't familiar with insects and insect poop, they have to figure out what frass is. So
there you go. Frass happens, and frass is insect poop. We told you this was going to be bug related, and there is your first bug fact.
da 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 da.
So anyway, that's enough about poop, I think, for now. There'll be future episodes focused solely on insect poop and insects that look like poop. Little foreshadowing for future episodes there. But in the meantime, we'll put the poop aside and let's talk about you, Katie.
Let's put the poop aside for you.
So, Katie, your handle on Instagram is The Joyful Ecologist. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that means to you?
Yeah, definitely. The Joyful Ecologist is something that I coined a long time ago, and it was basically I got into academia and I immediately was struck by how gatekeepy it can be and how I don't know, it really falls into the cult of professionalism when really I felt that my work was so inspired by love and joy and fascination, rather than how many papers can I get under my name. And I also really wanted to make my handle more accessible to folks who might think that science isn't for them. They might think, oh, this is this very serious thing that I don't have access to. So in terms of the Joyful Ecologist, I just think that exploring the natural world and being out in it and creating these interspecies communities is an act of joy. Hence the Joyful Ecologist.
I love that.
Thanks. Yeah, we all need to be out there really embracing our 6-year-old selves, turning over rocks, looking under flowers. I found the coolest thing under a leaf today. Looks like a ball of mud hanging from a little string underneath a milkweed leaf.
And like the silk thread that it's hanging from though like spans out on the leaf, so like it's clearly like purposefully there. It's not like it got caught in like an old spider web. Like it's like this silk was created on this leaf and then the thread was created in this piece of mud which likely has a critter inside, is like dangling from it.
Yeah, and because I'd never seen it before, I didn't want to cut it open because I wanted to like let whatever was happening happen. And it turns out it's a spider thing. It's a little like spider cocoon. So I was really excited about it. But that just came from literally flipping leaves over in my backyard. And that sparked this whole like wonderful mystery adventure.
Again, just the whole fact that there are secrets all around us, and being able to look for things that look different, right? This piece of mud dangling from a silk thread on a leaf in the garden. Like, how many people would have walked by that and never thought to look at it? But you stopped because you started observing these small little wonders that are around us. And so, yeah, embracing that childlike sense of wonder and joy and whimsy is just so important, I feel like, especially in this day and age. And that's really what we're hoping to bring a lot of you with this podcast, is like, let's bring back the excitement, let's bring back this joy, let's get super stoked about this universe that just exists around us. And at that point, we're gonna take a pause because I have a tick in my hand that I've been holding for a minute and I need to go throw it away. So I'll be right back.
Perfect.
We might leave that in. All right. In case I decided to leave that in, the tick has now been disposed of. Let's go on to our next question. So, Katie, what is your biggest hot take related to entomology, academia, or even just nature in general?
Okay. I feel like this is probably going to be whiplash, seeing as I just described, like, what joy in ecology means to me. But my hot take is people who are afraid of wasps need to grow up. I am so sick of hearing people be like, yeah, but I was stung, so I'm allowed to kill wasps for the rest of my life. No, you're not. Grow up. I honestly, like, people have said this to me on dating apps where they'll be like, well, insects are fine except for wasps. Fuck them wasps. And I'll be like, cool, ick, bye.
I made a Yellow Jacket post recently, and the amount of people that I have had to delete comments from or even just outright block. I mean, I received a death
Mm-hmm.
threat on Instagram because I made a post being like, hey, this Queen Yellow Jacket, because I had my door open to my office, flew in, and then she gets stuck. So I capture her, I put her in a little vial, I walked her outside, it was 5 steps, and I opened up the vial to release her, and I got a really close up, cute video of her just like cleaning off her antennae and her legs. And she sat on the edge of the vial doing that before she just flew off towards the sun, because that's where bees and wasps and many other insects will fly off to. And she just flew away, and someone literally told me that I should die because I released a native species of wasp into the outdoors. And I'm like, that is a wild thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, the wasp hate out there really needs to chill out.
It's really wild. And I think that, like, I would like to invite people to, I guess, think for themselves a little bit more in terms of,
Yeah.
like, what wasps actually are and the role they play in the environment and the actual threats that they pose, which are very, very minimal to people. I think a lot of people have been influenced by, you know, uh, movies and things like that where aliens look like wasps,
Mm-hmm.
or like the media trying to like stir up headlines with the whole like murder hornet thing that was happening for a while here in North America, where they're like, oh my gosh, there's this murder hornet that's going to kill all of the honeybee hives, and suddenly that means that everyone's a wasp expert and that all wasps are the murder hornet. And so I guess that's the thing, is like, I really want people to have more curiosity about the world around them. And instead of just taking this blanket statement that you've been fed of wasps are jerks, wasps are assholes, and instead, again, turn that into fascination. Like, well, what is it about a wasp that makes them more reactive? And then they might find out, oh, it's because they're predators. So it's kind of like the difference between a lion and an elephant. Like, give both space, but maybe give the lion more space because it's a
I don't know,
predator.
elephants are pretty intense too.
That might have been a wrong type of comparison, but you
Maybe
get
like
what
an
I'm saying.
antelope,
And
I don't know.
yeah, right? Well, and I won't get too into this because we're going to definitely have a whole episode about it, but that's my hot take. If you're a wasp hater, grow up
Yeah.
and think for yourself.
And we're also not going to downplay or diminish the fact that people can be allergic to these animals, right? If you're allergic to a wasp, we're not telling you to go out and handle them and have them crawl all over you and interact with them and seek them out. But you are much more likely to get stung by something if you're trying to kill it than you are just by letting it be or asking someone to help get it out of your house if it shows up inside by accident. It wants to be outside as much as you want it to be outside.
And also, like, I know I sort of used a blanket statement for, like, if you're afraid, you should grow up. It's also okay to be afraid. It's what you do with that fear. Are
Mm-hmm.
you turning that fear into violence and hate, or are you turning that fear into curiosity and potentially fascination? So yeah, that's my hot take. And now, Casey, I'm so curious to hear yours.
Okay, biggest hot take related to entomology, academia, nature in general. Okay, I think that beekeeping should be much more heavily regulated. That's
Yeah.
gonna be like episode 3, by the way. So we're gonna leave it at that. If you're like, Casey, tell me more. Why should beekeeping be regulated? You're gonna have to wait a couple weeks, and we're gonna talk about it pretty in depth in, I believe it should be episode 3. So that's coming up really quick.
Yeah, Casey and I could go on and on about this for a while. And honestly, when we were thinking about that episode, which we've already brainstormed quite a bit, I was like, Casey, thank God you are a beekeeper and have this experience because it is such a nuanced thing. And again, we're not going to get into it right now, but basically, blanket statement, honeybees are a non-native livestock species here in North America and therefore should be regulated like any other livestock species.
Mhm.
Boop.
I have so many more, but I think we should leave it at that.
I know. We'll leave everyone with a little like, ooh, tantalizing. A little amuse-bouche.
Moving on to the next question. Katie and I both identify as queer. And it's a really important part of our identities that we like to openly talk about for a variety of reasons. So the next question has a little bit to do with that. And so what role does queerness play for you in the context of the work that we do? Do you want to also take this one first, Katie?
Sure, happy to. In terms of how queerness influences my work, shows up in my work, I think that going to sort of the original definition of queer in terms of challenging societal expectations and assumptions being the overreaching meaning of that word, I feel like that comes into our work all the time because insects are so largely unloved and despised by people. By loving the unloved and really showcasing them in this fascinating, beautiful, squishy light, it's changing the way that we look at things and it is challenging those societal expectations. So I think that in terms of being an entomologist, that really shows up in that way for me. It also, I think, is really important to both of us that we both show up as queer entomologists because it's important for us to change the face of science. I feel like it's something that if I was to think about some of my mentors looking back or the people I looked up to, it was hard to find folks that I felt were like me and find familiar faces in the crowd. So if I can be loudly and proudly queer, I hope that other queer entomologists or queer scientists in general are able to be like, oh, I see this person and I see myself there, and that makes me feel more welcome.
I feel like that was such a beautiful explanation and is probably right in line with what my thoughts were on that. Yeah, I think it's so important, especially, we see undergrads that work in our lab every summer that I interact with, that I mentor. And so it is really important for me to kind of be that person who is like, yeah, no, this is what I do. And also I'm queer and it's literally just a piece of my identity. It doesn't define me and what I do, but it does influence what I do and how I view the world. And also it's totally cool and okay. So I think it's really important, especially for young undergrads who are still maybe figuring out themselves and their place in this world and their identities to see that in other people. So that is a really big part of it for me, is being pretty open about that side of my identity with undergrads and other people. Growing up queer and also not knowing that you're queer is really interesting. You just feel like you don't really have a place in this world. You kind of feel like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I know I don't quite belong here. And so the whole like loving the unloved thing, I think, is really common in entomology. And I think that that's also why we see so many queer entomologists. There are so many people drawn to this subject and to this study because these are things that are historically unloved, and we know what that feels like, and we know how to go about showing the appreciation for them and the normality of them, and us at the same time. So that might not be so eloquent, but that's my
I think
thoughts
that was
on
really
that.
beautiful, Casey. And I'm actually going to invite you to share a little of your experiences too, in terms of when you brought up your undergrads and how you guys do a lot of field work, just to showcase, it still isn't safe necessarily for a lot of us
Yeah.
to be openly queer in the work that we do. A lot of our work takes us into remote spaces. It brings us into spaces where we're interacting with folks who might not necessarily agree with who we are, and might put us in unsafe situations. And Casey, I know that this is something you've run into, and I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there have been a few field seasons where we have had to deal with different people who might be unsafe to folks in the queer community. And I do have the privilege of being straight passing when I want to be, so that is something that I do recognize the privilege of. But yeah, we had a big old Trump supporter of a land manager that we had to deal with. And if you're gonna, at this moment, if you're listening and you go, politics and science and entomology podcast shouldn't go together. Nah, to heck with that. It definitely does. They are all connected, and they most definitely go together. So we had this one landowner that we had to be working with, and every time that I had worked with him, he had, Trump flags flying and a Trump shirt on every single time that I saw this man. And one of the teams that was doing field work was pretty openly queer. We had someone who was non-binary, we had someone who was openly gay, and they were pretty young. And I was honestly so worried about their safety. And so that was something where it was technically out of my group's jurisdiction, but since I can be straight passing when I want to be, I decided, and it was also a lead on this project, I decided that our team was going to be the one to go out and survey this site. Because I truly did not feel like that was a space that was going to be safe for some of these other folks that were included on the project and doing this field work. Which is unfortunate for all parties. That should not be something that we're encountering, spaces where we're conducting research, or natural spaces shouldn't be something where we have to worry about someone judging us or not allowing us to exist, or just being generally unsafe.
Well, thank goodness for people like you, Casey. I know that I would have loved to have you as a mentor when I was a little undergrad also. All right, shall we?
So our next question is, if you could do any other job besides entomology, what would you do? So I will start us off. Katie did point at me, so I will be the one doing this one first. So when I first started my undergrad, I was actually super into cetaceans. So cetaceans are whales, dolphins, porpoises. I really wanted to go into marine biology. In recent years, I have learned that the marine biology to entomology pipeline is pretty real. There are so many entomologists who were originally interested in marine biology, which I just think is fascinating. I get horribly motion sick. That would be a horrendous job for me. I make myself motion sick in the car sometimes, so living on a boat or going on a boat to do research would be pretty rough for me. Learned that one pretty quick. And then I also realized that it is such a competitive field that I'd have to go to grad school, and I didn't want to do that. But I ended up going to grad school anyway. So that was originally what I wanted to do, but I think now I feel like I would love to go into archaeology. Your girl digs get it? Digs an ancient Egyptian documentary so hard. I go through phases whenever I have to pin lots of bees for work. I will put on this specific ancient Egyptian documentary series, this docu-series, and just have that going in the background while I'm cutting out labels and pinning bees and doing my thing. Because I just absolutely love it. So I feel like if I wasn't a marine biologist and I wasn't an entomologist, that I would be some sort of archaeologist, because again, it's just finding out these little secrets. They're so fun.
I love that. I also love that you still want to be a scientist, no matter what, because I don't.
I'm so excited to hear your answer. And this is so fun because we don't know each other's answers to these things. So I am learning about Katie
I
as you
know.
guys
I
are
also
too.
love that you were a dolphin girl and a horse girl. Like, you were the ultimate early 2000s child. Like, Save the Whales,
Very Lisa
very Lisa
Frank.
Frank. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Very Lisa Frank.
Well, what I would love to be, if I was not an entomologist, is a fucking rock star.
You are, though.
Thank you. I would love that. Oh man, that was like if I like had 3 wishes, I would love to have just like the best singing voice ever and be an actual rock star because I just love the world. Like Almost Famous has been my favorite movie ever since I was a little girl, and I love the idea of just like getting on stage and sweating and like I don't know, slamming on my guitar and traveling all over the country and everyone knows me. Ah, Katie!
Oh my god.
I want to be a rock star, Casey.
That is so incredible. I think you should maybe start by learning guitar.
Yeah, probably. I'm so bad at instruments.
That's incredible. All right, rock star. Katie, truly, you are already a rock star. So
Aw,
you're doing great. You're living your dream.
thanks, BB.
All right, next question. What is a myth or misconception about insects that really grinds your gears? And I'll let you take this one first. There's a few.
There are a few, hence why we are starting this podcast. But I'd say that the one that's really been getting to me lately is because this is the time of year, it's, early summer, when people start coming to your door and saying, "Hey, do you want me to spray pesticides all over your lawn?" I've had 2 solicitors come to my door and try and sell me pesticides. And they show me pictures of all of my friends and say that they want to kill them. With all of that, what really grinds my gears is that people think that pesticides discriminate on a species level. They do not. Like some of them do, like on a group level, like some specifically target caterpillars, for example. So we have a really big brown-tailed moth problem in New England, but people think, "Oh, I'm just going to spray for brown-tailed moth." It doesn't work that way. If you are spraying for brown-tailed moth caterpillars, you are spraying for every caterpillar. It doesn't like be like, "Oh no, this one has green stripes, so I'm not going to kill it." Like it doesn't work that way. And that's something that drives me nuts. It's like if you're spraying for ground wasps, guess what you're also spraying for? Solitary bees. So that's one that's been really bugging me lately, is people thinking that they can just spray for one species at a time.
Yep. And that goes to mosquito spraying as well, where you'll kill a
Mm-hmm.
whole bunch of beneficial insects and you won't do anything to control the mosquito population.
There is no research out there that says that it actually controls population. Even tick spraying, they're like, okay, research shows that if you spray for ticks in your yard, it will reduce the amount of ticks in your yard for like 4 weeks. But it doesn't do anything for the greater population because guess what? They all just come back.
Because bugs can move. Bet you didn't know that. Yeah.
Listen, Frass happens. That's
Hey.
all. I mean, think of pest control like boundaries, where you're not trying to control someone else's body, you're just trying to control your body. So for ticks, for example, instead of trying to modify your environment so there are fewer ticks, modify your own body. So make sure you tuck your socks, make sure you tuck your shirt, wear permethrin treated pants if you need to, apply bug spray to your body, because trying to manipulate your environment is just going to be a really frustrating process for you that isn't going to yield good results, and it also might end up harming the wider environment.
That was a pretty deep one. That was good. I came up with some light ones. So we'll lighten the mood now with some lighter ones. There was a myth growing up that it's illegal to kill a praying mantis. I have no idea where that originated from. You can kill a praying mantis if you really want to. That's totally fine. Also, a lot of our mantids that we see typically in the garden, at least here in the Northeast United States, are going to be the Chinese mantid, which is an invasive species. And so you totally can kill that. You also should not be buying these mantids online and releasing them in your garden, because oftentimes they are the invasive Chinese mantid and not a native species. But that's one thing that got me is there's these like random myths that somehow all of our parents told us when we were kids. For some reason we were all told you cannot kill a mantid, but you can.
I like remember that too. Like you just unlocked a box in my brain from middle school where I remember people being like, it's illegal. Like you can't do it.
Okay. Next question. This one's going to be really hard. And I said that jokingly, but then I realized that it's actually potentially very true. What is your favorite insect? And then a follow-up, why? Go for it.
Okay. This is really hard. And I kind of have made it more a big group thing. So I just love me a big, beautiful, solitary digger wasp. They are so gorgeous. There's a bunch of different species in there. We've got our great black digger wasps. We've got our great golden diggers. We've got our eastern cicada killers. These are all just giant solitary wasps that live in the ground. And I think I love them mostly because they definitely look like wasps. And so they do tend to inspire some of that fear that we talked about before. But they're just gentle ladies. They're just trying to go about their day, trying to catch some cicadas or some grasshoppers or some crickets so they can feed their babies. That's all they want to do. And they look really awesome doing it. So I have an eastern cicada killer tattoo on my sternum because I love them so much. Just a big, gentle giant, unless you are a cicada.
The eastern cicada killer, the males do have a false stinger, so they look extra spooky, but they can't do anything besides buzz their wing muscles.
And get up in your face and go, these are my ladies. And you're like, you're just a big derp.
I love that.
I want to know yours, Casey. Tell me.
I do love wasps. So I have been working for the past couple of years on pollinator plantings in southern New England, but specifically looking at the relationship between flowers and bees. But oh my god, I get so distracted when I'm out there because I love watching all of the wasps interacting with the flowers and also on the flowers with other species or other individuals of their own species. They are just so fun to see at work on flowers. It's really great. So I do have to say wasps are one of mine. But if I had to pick a particular species, because I'm unable to do so with bees and wasps, my favorite species of insect is the giraffe weevil, which is this little weevil that you can find in Madagascar. So Katie and I will be taking a trip there one day, maybe.
First time I've heard of this, but I'm psyched. I'm ready. Let's go.
So giraffe weevils are a type of weevil, which is a type of beetle. And they have a shiny abdomen in that their elytra, which are like their wing coverings, are bright red. But then they have these super long necks, which is just insane. And they're so long. So if you are not driving while you're listening to this, you should definitely whip out your phone or your computer and look up giraffe weevil. The females have pretty short necks, but the males have these really, really long necks. They're just super silly looking, and I cannot wait to one day hopefully see one in person.
Oh, yeah. when we go to Madagascar,
Yeah.
this trip that I've just learned about that I'm now
yeah.
so excited about.
Whoop, whoop. If you want to come on the trip with us, let us know in the comments.
Oh my God.
We're inviting you too.
Oh my gosh. This is now a travel podcast.
All right. That's our favorite insect. We have a couple more questions before we end this first little personality introductory episode. This one's fun. Katie, what is one of your most favorite memories from your time in the field? And this could be a variety of things. It could be just like a cool bug or an observation that you had, a funny moment that you had with your colleagues, a weird encounter with someone out in the field. Yeah, just anything that's really a favorite memory of your field work from the research that you've done.
Absolutely. So anyone who's heard me give one of my talks, I often tell this story about, some of the things that you might run into when you're doing field work. So I did one project out in El Dorado National Forest in California. And out there are lots of critters like rattlesnakes and bears and mountain lions that make field work a little more, you want to be a little more cautious. And there was this one time I was surveying an area for bumblebees, and I was really focused, so I wasn't really paying attention to things that were happening around me, and I was like looking really carefully for bumblebees, and then suddenly I heard something really close to me kind of coming through the bushes, and I looked, and it was a bear. It was just this big black bear who hadn't noticed me either because I was being so quiet looking for bumblebees, and we both saw each other at the same time and both freaked out.
I'm freaking out right now.
I'm not mild-mannered. I'm not a very chill person, but this was such an unchill reaction that it even surprised me. I reached down and I grabbed a big stick and I held it over my head like Gandalf. And
before you said that you held it over your head like Gandalf, what I was picturing was SpongeBob.
Oh my God.
In that episode where the drawing of him holds up the pencil and is like, Naheem Nahoy!
So either one, whether you're into Lord of the Rings or SpongeBob, you'll get the picture. So I held this stick over my head to make myself look big, because that's what I remembered you're supposed to do around bears. And I yelled, "I am a huge predator, and this is my forest, and you can't hurt me."
Oh my
and
God.
He freaked out and he ran away. I ran the opposite way. And then after that, I was so scared of running into a bear again that I just sang so loudly the entire time I was looking for bees. And it was mostly just Disney songs. So if anyone was walking through El Dorado National Forest in summer of 2015 and they're like, is there someone out here singing I don't know, all of the songs from Aladdin? It was me. So that's probably one of my most memorable experiences from being in the field.
I didn't know that I was going to be contending with a black bear story. So mine is far less threatening, but it still seemed so exhilarating, but it's something fairly small. So one of my most favorite memories from the field was a few summers ago. I was out conducting bee surveys in these pollinator plantings. Where we would put all of our gear down, there was this thread-waisted wasp, Ammophila procera, and she was flying a little bit, but also walking and flicking her wings. And I was watching her for a little while, and then I realized that she had a paralyzed caterpillar nearby. It was about the entire length of her body, if not longer. It was a pretty good-sized caterpillar for her. So she had stung it to paralyze it, and now she was carrying it with mostly her mandibles, but also her front legs, and dragging it through tufts of grass to get to a spot. And then she would put it down, drop it, fly up a little bit, kind of reorient herself. A lot of bees and wasps, especially, will like kind of fly in some circles to orient themselves and figure out where they are. And so she would do that, come back down, grab the caterpillar, drag it a few more inches, drop it again, fly back up. And she couldn't really fly with the caterpillar because it was really so heavy. So she was mostly dragging it along the ground. She ended up bringing it all the way back to her little nest site, which was a hole in the ground. And this is going to be a caterpillar that's food for her baby. I got to then witness her bring this caterpillar down into the nest. So she dropped it right outside this entrance. First, she went in face first. A minute later, she backs out. Then she flips herself and she brings herself down butt first, abdomen first, into the nest, goes down, pokes her head back out, grabs the caterpillar, and then drags it all the way down. And she's down there for a minute or two. And then she came back out. She proceeded to close up the nest entrance. And that was seriously the coolest part. She would use her legs to, like a dog, like flick grains of sand and dirt into the hole. And then she used her mandibles to grab a rock or like a piece of debris that was a bit bigger, and she would tamp down what she had just scooched into the hole while vibrating her wing muscles. So she was like bzz, bzz, buzzing while pushing this rock down, and then she would drop that off to the side, flick more grains of sand in like a little dog, and then do it again, tamp it down. And she did that I don't even know, like 8 times. And then once it was level with the surface of the ground around the hole, she flew off.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I just love that entire encounter because it was so cool to watch so many different behaviors in the span of like 5 or 6 minutes. And
Absolutely.
it was what a little secret, what a little gift I got to see.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like that story goes back to what we were saying about like the secret worlds or the miniature worlds that surround us, and how that was something that like really drew both of us into entomology. So I feel like that story is just an absolute epitome of why we do what we do.
All right. So we are almost done with our little interview questions. We just have a couple more. But right now, what are you curious about? What holds your interest? And this is pretty open-ended. I feel like it could be really anything, if it's life related, research related, natural history observation related, news related, whatever. Yeah, what are you curious about right now, Katie?
Probably my son. So I have yeah. So I have a 4-month-old son, and he is amazing. He's super squishy and sweet and curious and alert. And yeah, no, so I feel like a lot of my interest these days has been in him and all the things that he's learning and how he's developing and just taking in the world, and just learning who he is as a person. So, yeah, he's probably what I'm most curious about these days.
Oh my goodness, I'm so curious about him too. He is such a little nugget. He's so stinking cute, and I can't believe that you made him and that you get to watch him grow up and I get to witness it too.
He's so good. I'm going to say, okay, the other day I was getting ice cream, and the oldest man I've ever seen in my life said, I
Katie just said that.
Sorry, you made me laugh.
That almost just came out my nose. Okay. The oldest man that's ever existed in the world told you.
Yes. So I was getting ice cream the other day, and the oldest man I've ever seen in my life looked at my son and said, "That's the cutest baby I've ever seen." So 1,000-year-old man thinks my baby is the cutest one, and he's probably seen a lot of babies. So I don't think I'm very biased when I say that my baby is the cutest one in the entire world.
He's pretty good. Also, I'm glad wasn't like, this baby will rule the world one day, because that would have definitely been like a prophet or something.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. My son has enough Aquarius placements that he's already weird as hell. And so I don't need prophets also like making grand projections about his life. But what about you, Casey? What are you curious about these days?
So I think what I am curious about at the moment are nocturnal pollinators. I think it's incredibly understudied. You know, most people work from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, and we're doing these different research projects during the day. But actually, around 60% of all insects are nocturnal. By not doing studies in the evening or at nighttime, we're really missing a lot of potential pollinator diversity. And so I'm really curious about who is out there in the evening visiting flowers and pollinating different things.
That's amazing. I did not know that stat. 60%?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, I feel like most people think maybe just like moths and fireflies are active in the evening, but there's so much more diversity out there with different insects being active in the evening. But yeah, I think I as a night owl am really curious about who's out there in the evening.
I feel like the people who do that research are so cool too. Like I've met a few people who focus on nocturnal pollinators, and you only see them at conferences like once a year, and they are exhausted and look like super strung out, but they have all of this amazing information because they've basically been living at night for like months. And yeah, so shout out to all the people who do that work because it's really important, and as you said, they are just massively understudied.
And if there's anybody out there listening that has a lab that works with nocturnal insects, especially pollinators, please contact me because I want to come work for you.
Yes.
A shameless plug.
I love it.
So our last interview question for this first episode is a two-parter. And this is truly, I think, the most important of all of the questions that we have asked so far.
Oh, absolutely.
If you had to pick any insect to be horse-sized, what would it be?
I want to hear your answer first.
I think that my answer entirely depends on the context. So I was like, well, if I'm riding this animal into battle, right? Because you would ride a horse into battle. Am I riding this into battle? If I was doing that, I would 100% pick a robber fly in the genus Lafria. Those big bumblebee mimic robber flies, because those things basically have a gigantic bayonet as their mouth parts, and they can fly. And I think the flight would be like pretty stable because they have their halteres as flies do, which act as little gyroscopes. So they'll be able to, I think, keep me steady on their back. So if I'm domesticating this animal and riding it like a horse, it would totally be a robber fly. I'd win every battle. It'd be great.
Casey, this is so funny. So this is skipping ahead a little bit, but the next question in this two-parter is if all insects were horse-sized, but you could pick one that remained small, which one would you pick? And I 100% picked a Lafrio robber fly because they're so freaking scary. And of course, you're over here like, Miss, I used to ride Frisians, being like, I would just tame it and ride it into battle, where I'm like, keep it small. They're so scary.
Yeah, they come equipped with a free bayonet. It's incredible. So yeah, so that would be my answer if it was like I could domesticate it. Otherwise, yeah, that's definitely one to keep small. What was your answer to part one, though?
Absolutely 100% the opposite. Like the most docile insect that exists, which is a male bumblebee of any species. Because, right? Just, it would be like a buffalo but sweet.
But you can't, okay, no, you can't discriminate with sexes of the insect here. Because if you had a male that was that big, logically speaking, you would also have to have a queen bumblebee that big. And you want to be stepping on a Bombus fervidus queen nest when they're horse-sized, and it's just a stampede.
We'd be dead. But I feel like, okay, the bumblebees, I'm remaining with my answer, because bumblebees are docile enough, like, we'd know, like, the huge caves where they live, and we'd be like, don't go there.
Like those giant sloths or something.
Right. But then, like, every, fall, there'd be a male bumblebee roundup, And we'd round up all the male bumblebees so people could have them as pets. And they'd be so soft and fluffy, these big mustachioed gentlemen, and you'd rub their little yellow faces and they'd like cuddle up to you like big sweet buffalo.
And then when the horse-sized workers were flying through the air with pollen loads to bring back to their cave colony, it would fall off of their legs and like take out a whole town.
You think your allergies are bad now?
They would probably be the most efficient pollinator, but they would probably break trees.
I know, right? I guess they'd have to like, man, okay, no, I'm gonna get too far down the rabbit hole, but I'm already like, wait, so like what niche would they fill? Like what would they pollinate? Would it have to be trees? Would trees then not be wind pollinated? Anyway.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
I already answered the second part, so I want to hear yours now.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of was on the same boat with you. So, yeah, if all insects were horse-sized, but you had to pick one that remained small, which one would you pick? I think that I would say a blood-feeding mosquito. So not all mosquitoes feed on blood. I think it's about like a third of them. But for those that do, like Aedes aegypti or Anopheles, I would not want that to be horse-sized because they could probably kill you in one feeding.
You just like stick it in and I wonder how that's gonna sound in people's ears.
You just become like a husk of a thing and just like fall.
You know what I'm so surprised that neither of us picked though? Are dragonflies. They have a 99% kill rate.
Yeah, so I truly was between dragonflies and mosquitoes, and I went the mosquito route, and I actually looked up how many bites it would take from a mosquito to exsanguinate you, and you would need like 1.6 million mosquito bites all at once to run you dry.
Well, dude, have you seen the people who study mosquitoes? They often will just feed them off of their own arms, and
Yeah.
those guys are badass. Like, they will just stick their arm in a cage full of mosquitoes and let them all feed on them. It looks wild.
Well, I was really mad because I, at URI years ago, and I mean, they still do tick research, but years ago, they, for rearing their black-legged tick colonies, needed the ticks to be feeding on humans. And so a couple people were chosen to get like 10 ticks in a cage on their arm, and those ticks would feed on them, and then they would take them off and use them for different research purposes. And these were all lab reared, so they don't have any diseases. And I really wanted to do it, but I didn't get chosen, and I was actually really sad about it.
Oh no. Wait, that's so funny that there was like a lottery for people who wanted to get eaten by ticks.
Yeah, you had to have like a connection.
That's crazy.
Well, I think that this is a really good one to put out into the universe. So I think we're going to leave you, the audience, with these last two questions. So the first one is, if you had to pick any insect to be horse-sized, what would it be and why? And then part two, if all insects were horse-sized, but you could pick one that remained small, which one would you pick? So comment on this episode with your answer, because we are really curious about this. I think we're going to have some vastly different answers, and I cannot wait to hear what you all think about this.
I know. I'm so excited to hear some of these answers.
It's going to be fun.
But I think that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this initial intro episode, and we're so excited to keep it going for you.
Our next episode is going to be like an intro to entomology crash course. We're going to start getting into some buggy things, and it's just going to get better from there. Tune in bi-weekly for more episodes of Frass Happens, and since we're a new podcast, please follow and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends about us, leave us a comment, send us a nice note, and thank you all so very much for listening.
Okay, love you, bye!
Be nice to bugs!